based on a true story, and this is the 5th part of the horror series of the French Devil Couple. Hey yo, it's Bone Chill File again. Like, share, subscribe me to follow the latest horror files updated daily. The feeble dawn light filtered through the thick fog enveloping the Charleville-Mézières train station on a Saturday morning in March 1989. Sophie Dubois, the 21-year-old girl with long brown hair cascading beneath her pale yellow coat, walked lightly across the wet cobblestones. The old backpack on her shoulder was stuffed with books, social work materials, dreams of a world where disadvantaged children were sheltered by the warm hands of compassion. Just a few days earlier, Sophie had sat by the window of her dorm room, beaming as she told her little brother about the upcoming train ride. You know, I'll bring you a special gift, the embroidered handkerchief Mom taught me to make. I stitched a rose on it, symbolizing God's love for us. Her brother, only 10 years old, had thrown his arms around her, giggling as Sophie pretended to make the handkerchief fly, like a butterfly around his head. That was Sophie, a gentle girl, passionate about charity work, her Catholic faith as steadfast as the pillar of her family. Every week, she caught the 5:39 a.m. train back to Béthune to visit her parents, carrying stories of joy from the Catholic school where she was studying to become a social worker. "I'll help children like I was back then," she had once whispered to her mother, her eyes sparkling with hope. But that morning, no one waited for her at the other end of the tracks. The train rolled on, carrying the abandoned backpack on its seat, and Sophie vanished like a ghost, dissolving into the mist. Béthune, the same hour. Mrs. Marie Dubois stood at the station, a bouquet of daisies trembling in her hands. The clock ticked, 6 o'clock, 6:05, 6:10. "She's just late," she whispered, her eyes fixed on the empty tracks, the cold wind lashing her cheek like an invisible warning. Sophie Dubois had met them a few months earlier, the enthusiastic couple she encountered on the train. The wife, Sylvie Laurent, with her gentle smile and voice as sweet as honey, had once praised Sophie's kindness while listening to her talk about volunteer work. "I used to dream like you," Sylvie said, her eyes gleaming with shared understanding. The husband, Victor Moreau, tall and outwardly polite, nodded in agreement, speaking of their little house in Flowing, where they could invite her over to discuss faith. They pretended to be like-minded believers, exploiting the young girl's innocence. A pure soul who had never tasted deceit. Sophie trusted them. Why wouldn't she? In her world, kindness was always repaid with kindness. They didn't take her home. Instead, the old pickup truck rumbled along the winding forest roads of the Ardennes, where the fog concealed the darkest secrets. The scent of damp earth and decaying leaves wafted through the cracked window, mingling with the engine's growl like the breath of a monster. Sylvie Laurent sat beside her, stroking Sophie's hand like a big sister, whispering soothing words to relax her. "Just a little longer, dear. We'll pray together soon." Sophie smiled faintly, clutching the rose-embroidered handkerchief in her pocket, the gift for her brother, now a futile talisman. Béthune, 7 a.m. Mrs. Marie called the school, her voice breaking. "She hasn't come back? The train arrived already." Sophie's little brother burst in, his face pale, but she promised to bring the handkerchief. But when the truck stopped in front of the Chateau de Sauda, the crumbling building Victor Moreau called the Castle of the Monster, everything changed. The wind howled through the broken walls, carrying the musty smell of mold and rusted metal from the cellar below. Victor, with eyes as cold as a blade, lunged at the young girl like a predator. He wasn't hasty. His savagery lay in the slowness, in the way he prolonged the horror. Sophie begged, her voice trembling, "Please, I just want to go home." But he laughed a hoarse, twisted laugh, as if her pain were the gift he'd long awaited. He raped her on the cold stone floor of the cellar, her body writhing weakly under his brutal strength, her skin burning from his clawing nails, the metallic tang of blood mixing with his foul breath. Then, when she was exhausted, he strangled her with his rough hands, inch by inch, savoring the fading rhythm of her breath, her skin turning icy like Ardennes frost, the crack of bones under pressure. In her final moments, Sophie, with the last of her strength, whispered through tears, "Lord, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want," her favorite Bible verse from Psalm 23, which she read every night, before sleep, a plea for peace she believed would protect her. Victor leaned close, his lips brushing her ear, whispering in mock sweetness, "Yes, good girl, God is calling you home. Sleep now. He will forgive everything." It was the ultimate lie, a profound betrayal of faith. He turned the word of God into a dagger, stabbing straight into the heart of her soul, making her death not just physical, but the collapse of her entire world of belief. Sylvie stood there unmoving, silently watching, her eyes gleaming with a warped pleasure. Later in vague confessions, she would admit to keeping Sophie's rose-embroidered handkerchief, the fateful gift never delivered to her brother, as a small trophy hidden in her drawer, caressing it on long nights as a reminder of the sick power she shared with her husband. 15 years later, Dantry. The flashlight beam sweeps the deep well, glinting on white fabric, the handkerchief still intact, like a whisper from the shadows. They buried her in a well behind the castle, alongside other souvenirs Victor hoarded like treasures. Sophie's body, still in her gray skirt and shiny leather shoes, was tossed down like discarded trash, the damp earth swallowing her dreams, the pungent reek of mud rising, the patter of falling soil like the laughter of hell. Victor even returned a few times, sitting by the well's edge, murmuring fake prayers, a sick joke with the faith he'd once exploited to lure his victims. His savagery wasn't just in the acts, but in the calculation. He chose girls like Sophie because their purity intensified his pleasure, like a feast stretched out in the darkness. Hundreds of miles away in Béthune, the pain began as a small crack in the family wall, but it spread, tearing everything apart piece by piece. Mrs. Marie Dubois, Sophie's mother, waited at the station with her daughter's favorite bouquet of daisies. Hours passed, then days, then months. 15 years later, when Victor was arrested and led police to the well in Dantry, the truth emerged like an old wound ripped open. Sophie's remains were found beside the body of another little girl, Elizabeth Brichette. Two young souls buried together in horror. And there, amid the muddy soil, the rose-embroidered handkerchief sparkled under the flashlight, pristine as a whisper from the past. Prosecutor Yves Charpentier came to Béthune himself, his voice shaking as he recounted the details. How Victor lured her, how he tortured her with her own faith, how Sylvie Laurent watched like a complicit shadow. Mrs. Marie collapsed, clutching the faded yellow coat the police brought back. The faint soap scent still lingered, now mixed with the damp earth from the well. "Give her back to me. She just wanted to help others," she screamed, gripping the handkerchief so tightly, as if holding it hard enough would summon her daughter from a strange dreams she'd had all those waiting years. A faint whisper from the deep well, "Mom, I'm praying here." Mr. Dubois, the father who once taught his daughter to pray each evening, now sat silently by the window, staring at the station where Sophie's brother, now a 25-year-old man, still pinned up the faded missing posters, yellowed with time. "She promised to bring the handkerchief for me," the boy from back then whispered, his voice cracking, his hand trembling as he touched the found item. On long nights, Mr. Dubois drowned in alcohol, nightmares of his daughter, wandering alone, jolting him awake in the dark, screaming her name. The Dubois family lived in the hell of not knowing, where every day was a knife slicing the heart, from the joyful dinners of old, with Sophie laughing and sharing school stories, to the silent mornings now, where Mrs. Marie hugged the faded coat, murmuring the Bible verse her daughter loved, hoping it would bring her spirit home. They laid Sophie to rest in the Haley Court Cemetery, under a simple grave with the inscription, "Love and kindness eternal." The handkerchief was placed by the grave, a final trace of the innocence stolen away. But the pain couldn't be buried. It lingered, like the Ardennes fog, a reminder that a family could shatter from the savagery of two monsters in human guise. And on nights when the wind howled through the Chateau de Sautou, the whisper from the deep well echoed, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." That plea now seeming to blend with the distant cry of Elizabeth Brichette, the next victim, waiting in the shadows. A reminder that the Ardennes still held other souls crying out from beneath the earth.